On the agenda, Mr. Vice Mayor. Shh. We've got one piece of legislation on the agenda, and then we're going to have a presentation about the under one roof plan from the mayor's office. On the piece of legislation, we do not at this time have a quorum, so we're not going to be able to vote on that. Maybe we will by the time we get to the end. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Matt Wilshire, who is the new CSIAO of MDHA, and he's going to give us the presentation. Go ahead, Matt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think that really rolls off the tongue. This Chief Strategy and Intergovernmental Affairs Officer for MDHA. But it is an honor to be here with you guys today. There is a presentation that we've prepared, and I hope you all have copies of it, that I'll go through pretty summarily. Happy to take questions if there are sort of minor points that you have along the way, but we will open this up to questions at the end, and Jim Harbison, the Executive Director of MDHA, and Hannah Davis, who manages the Barnes Fund, will join me to answer those more detailed questions at that point. But we did receive a number of questions from members of this committee, and I presume from other council members, and I want to try and address those as well as we go through the presentation. So first, let's talk about the challenge. And I think this information will be pretty intuitive for everyone, but here's some actual data points behind it. This is the median home price, Q4, residential home price for single-family homes in Davidson County over the last 9 years. You can see that it has essentially doubled over the last 9 years, from just over $150,000 to a little over $300,000. Rents have followed a similar pattern, a somewhat stronger spike, but have somewhat leveled out with the increase in supply that's come onto the market, but it's still at a fairly high level. And as we're talking about setting expectations on data, I did want to address the Housing Nashville report that was released in 2017, in particular because there are a couple of numbers that folks refer to, and I just want to make sure that we're setting expectations because I think it is important for how the mayor and MDHA have thought about the proposal that we have before you guys. So this is the data as of 2015, and as you can see, there's essentially a measurement of supply versus demand. How many units do we have and how many units do we need? The units that we need are based upon the number of persons earning various income levels. And you can see from these slides that as of 2015, there was a deficit of about 3,300 based upon these numbers, too few units from folks for folks who earned less than $30,000 of area median income versus the number of units that existed. And on the rental side, that gap was somewhat larger at 17,000. So fast forwarding to what the report at the time projected, and this is really the number that we want to spend just a minute talking about. It's the 31,000 number. And that's a data point that I think has sort of taken on a life of its own. It's appeared in numerous news stories and is one that folks talk about. We need to build 31,000 units. Just to address that, that is the number of units on the renter side, not the for sale or ownership side, for folks earning between 0 and 30% of area median income and between 30 and 60. You sum those two numbers together in the red circle on slide 5, and that's where the 31,000 comes from. Now, if you look at the two numbers beneath that, you see that there are, in fact, according to the same analysis, 50,000 more units than we need for folks making between 60 and 120% of area median income. Now, this data is 2015 data, so it is somewhat dated. But second of all, that's not a number that makes a lot of sense to a lot of folks who are concerned about the slide that we saw a few earlier about the rapidly appreciating rents. The reality is many of the folks who are in this category because of their earnings, making less than 60% of area median income, are actually renting units in this category. And so there really is that's the definition of someone being cost burdened, that they're having to rent a unit that is much more expensive, even though they make between 30 and 60 or less than 30. You'll see the last number in the bottom right-hand corner is that there is also a deficit of rental units in market rate, the market rate category of about 23,000 units. And that's because some of those folks are, again, renting in this area and therefore are paying less than 30% of their income, and they're living quite affordably in that sense. And so this really speaks to sort of what is the status of the marketplace. And this is an incredibly complex subject, but what we want to try and address is this is not we need to build 31,000 units. It is we certainly need to increase supply. That's what we'll talk about here in a little bit, but it's also about what the pricing is on those units and, quite honestly, what the wages are of folks living in Davidson County. So what is the proposal to address this situation? The first important statement is that we're looking to form public and private partnerships. The mayor believes very firmly that this is not a problem that the government can solve alone and really even address in a meaningful way alone, but that we need to work together with our partners in the private sector to help increase housing affordability in Nashville. And the goal over the next 10 years is to construct or maintain at least 10,000 units of affordable housing. How is that going to happen? Three main components. So $750 million in total of capital deployed towards affordable housing. The first component would be $350 million of Metro bond funding that would go to MDHA to, one, add 1,000 deeply affordable units on top of what they are already working on today, adding additional deeply affordable housing inventory to the stock in Nashville. And as I'm sure we'll hear from Executive Director Harbison later, this is not happening anywhere in the country. Nobody is adding to the deeply affordable housing stock in the U.S., and that's what this city is proposing to do. In addition, we will be able to rapidly accelerate the Envision process, which MDHA began several years ago, and advance the timetable on when we'll be able to move forward with the Envision process. So that's the first component. The second component would come from operating funds, and it's $150 million to increase by about 50% the commitment to the Barnes Fund. And the Barnes Fund, as we'll talk about in some more detail later, has been incredibly successful, and we're excited to accelerate that. But as I said at the outset of this slide, this is about public-private partnerships and sending a clear message to the private sector that while the government is stepping up and making a serious commitment to address affordability of housing in Nashville, we need the private sector to do that as well. And we'll talk about some specific avenues for that. But in conversations that we've had with members of the private sector, this is a component that they are very excited about. So affordable housing means a lot of things to a lot of people. And the way we have tried to break this down into segments to have some understanding of how that works is by looking at 4 categories of affordable housing. Now, affordability is important wherever you happen to sit on the income stream. You care about affordability if you're earning minimum wage, and you care about affordability if you're in a medium income, and you care about affordability if you're at an upper income, but the tools and tactics appropriate for each of those segments are different, and that's what we're attempting to address in the proposal that we have before you today. But to put some data around these numbers, here on slide 8, you can see if you're making 30% of area median income, that means for an individual, you're making about $14,750, and for a family of 4, $25,200. The components that I addressed on the prior slide, MDHA is certainly serving that segment. They are the ones who are providing deeply affordable housing. The Homeless Services Center, which we'll talk a little bit more about, which is a part of this component, the proposal, addresses that segment certainly. And then the Barnes Fund, though it's primarily focused on folks making between 30 and 60% of area median income, has funded a number of units. About 15% of the units have gone for folks making less than 30,000 of area median income. The next category, the 30 to 80, clearly the sweet spot of MDHA and the Barnes Fund. And in some cases, we believe the private sector can address this component as well. Maybe not in the same scale, because the economic returns on a unit that you build for someone making 30% of area median income and not spending more than 30% of their income on housing costs, it's tough to make an economic return there. But there are some things that the city can do, that the communities can do to encourage that. In the 80 to 120, that's now above where the Barnes Fund is, but some of the units, as we look to create mixed income neighborhoods from the Envision process at MDHA, will be in this category. The good news is that those units can be conventionally financed. They don't need city support as much for them, but there is some city support that would help facilitate those units. And then clearly this is an area where the private market can step in more meaningful ways. And then clearly in the market rate above 120% of area median income. This is an area that there will be some inclusion in the mixed income neighborhoods in Envision, but really the private sector can step up here in meaningful ways. So what is the Envision process? Just to sort of set the table here for everyone, MDHA serves over 13,000 families on a daily basis. The primary mission of MDHA is to serve people in Nashville, to provide safe, affordable, equitable housing for those who are most in need. And that is a mission that organization has served with distinction for 80 years. And the way that they are looking to evolve the offering of MDHA is through the Envision process. That was sort of formally kicked off 4 or 5 years ago, has ramped up with the master plan for Envision Casey. We're now into the master planning process for Envision Napier-Suticum and Edge Hill. And that vision provides for mixed income neighborhoods, mixed use neighborhoods to deconcentrate poverty and improve the outcomes for all of the residents there. I mean, MDHA has been adamant that its mission, like any other organization, to put its customers first. Its mission is to put the residents first, and that's what this entire process has been built around. To get into some of the specifics about the 6 Envision properties, I mentioned Casey there in yellow in East Nashville. That process is well underway, and a number of the units have already been completed and are opening, and others are under construction today. That process will be accelerated by the city's investment. Napier-Suticum is deep into the planning process, going clockwise around here. Edge Hill in green has begun the master planning process, and then Andrew Jackson, Cheatham Place, and Cumberland View, we've yet to initiate the master planning process, but with the city investment would be able to kick that off in short order. In aggregate, we believe that there would be about 5,000 new units on these 235 acres in the core of Nashville, really attractive places for housing regardless, but certainly for low-income folks to be able to get to and from work with lower transportation barriers. So Casey Place, as I mentioned, has already begun. The master plan was completed in 2014. The rezoning was completed in 2016. 70 deeply affordable homes at Barrett Manor were completed in 2017, and 94 mixed income homes at Kirkpatrick Park will be completed this summer, actually really this spring and summer, and those are going to be open soon. I want to point out the gentleman in the lower left-hand corner here. His name is Art. Art was the first resident of Casey, the old Casey, if you will, to move into one of the new Casey units. And I think it's important for all of us to take a look at this. The numbers can be overwhelming and daunting. $750 million, 10,000 new units, 5,000 new units on the 6 Envision properties. But it is about serving individuals like Art and making sure that they have a safe, affordable, and equitable place to live and to live their lives. So the next steps on helping other folks like Art are to the Envision Napier-Suticum master plan, and the construction could begin there as early as next year. The Envision Edge Hill master plan is projected to be completed in May of this year, next month, and then the rezoning would be projected to be completed in early 2020. And as I said, the next step in the process would be to begin the master planning for Cheatham Place, Cumberland View, and Andrew Jackson. So that process has been ongoing. And there's been considerable progress made. It hasn't been as fast as I think some folks would like it to have been because, in part, they've been limited by the amount of funding that MDHA has had, but also, importantly, because they have been incredibly, we have been, although I don't deserve any credit for this, have been incredibly respectful of the residents who live there. And I don't want to say that this is perfect. I'm certain there are folks who have moved earlier than they wanted to move or moved to a unit that was different from the one that they wanted, but it has been overwhelmingly respectful of the residents who live there today. And that organization, our organization, has put customers first. But the new part is 1,000 new units. So taking the roughly 5,400 units that MDHA owns and operates today and adding 1,000 new units. These are called Faircloth units. The Faircloth is, there's a Faircloth amendment to the housing legislation. I believe it's named after a Senator Faircloth. And these are essentially units where HUD has said, hey, if you build these units, and it's actually technically 1,031 units, I believe, if you build these units, we will give you the subsidy for those units based upon who the residents are. If we build 2,000 new units, MDHA builds 2,000, there's no guarantee that we would get the HUD payments for those additional units. But we have a guarantee from HUD, if you build 1,031 new units, we'll give you the subsidy for any qualifying residents who live in those units. And so that is a key priority of MDHA and what they're looking to do. And so we will create 1,031 new deeply affordable units on top of what was already planned through the Envision process.
Mr. Wiltshire, let me ask you a question. This term that you guys, or even you guys are putting it in quotes, the deeply affordable, that was a new one on me a few weeks ago. How does that fit into the terminology that we've been used to for the last several years about percentages of AMI? Yep.
Glad you asked that. On slide 8, you can see the labels that we have used, and I think it can be really confusing. Affordable, deeply affordable, low income, moderate income, workforce, and I'm not sure that there is a perfect label, but these are the labels that we have ascribed, that the mayor has ascribed to the various categories. And so each place, instead of saying housing for individuals making between 0 and 30% of area median income and not paying more than 30% of their income for rent, we've simply used the label deeply affordable. So 0 to 30 AMI. The answer to your question.
And just a quick follow-up on that. So is that like an industry term of art, or is that something y'all made up? Just
yeah. So when you look around the country at various other public housing agencies or authorities and some of the language that's used in other markets around the country, some use this sort of language, others use different language. I think Portland, if I recall correctly, uses deeply affordable, but other places, Denver, I think, uses low income. And so I'm not sure that there is one consistent nomenclature that's used.
All right, but for you guys, 0 to 30 AMI.
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks a lot.
So the overall investment in this process is really driven by 3 primary motivations. First, the clear need for more deeply affordable units. MDHA is really the primary entity that can deliver this because of the relationship that they have with HUD. I mean, relationship they have with HUD, because the HUD will pay the subsidy to MDHA. That is a source of income that if Councilwoman Allen went to build some housing for folks making between 0 and 30% of area median income, she would not have access to, right? The access to that subsidy comes through MDHA's relationship with HUD. And so that's the mechanism for us in the most cost-effective way to deliver units in that category. Second, we want to, and this is very important, and I think actually sets a national model. We are partnering with federal and state agencies to fund this in a collaborative way. And Executive Director Harbison can talk in much more detail about this, but the relationship that MDHA has built with THDA and with HUD, this is truly a national example. I'm sure many of the folks here will be participating in ULI that's coming through. Folks outside of Nashville seem even more interested in and excited about what we're doing because of the standard that this is setting for how local, state, and federal agencies can work together to fund affordable housing. And so, if we believe that the city should have a stake in affordable housing, then this is an opportunity for us to break down barriers between local government and MDHA and make sure that there's good collaboration. I have taken a little bit longer than I had wanted, so I'm going to try and move a little bit more quickly through the next piece of this. But this should be familiar to this body. You all have created and cultivated and grown and passed numerous pieces of legislation related to the Barnes Fund. But just as a reminder, the Barnes Fund provides gap financing for nonprofit affordable housing developers who are going through to build both rental and for ownership housing units, targeted primarily at units for the 30 to 80 AMI. And there have also been a number of Metro-owned properties, back tax properties and others, that have been donated or contributed as a part of the Barnes funding rounds. To date, the Barnes Fund there has been $28 million of grants to nonprofit affordable housing developers that have leveraged an additional $127.7 million from the private sector, other grants, THDA, home funds, other sources of funding to create $154 million of projects that have resulted in 1,306 units that have been built or retained for multifamily, single family, for sale, and rental. And those units have been spread not evenly across the county. The size of the bubble relates to the size of the project, but it has been fairly well dispersed. And I'm sure Hannah will address this in more detail, but Barnes Fund looks, and Colby can speak to this, you've served on the evaluation committee, I believe, would love to have projects in every council district and would encourage you all to work with affordable housing developers to make sure that there's affordable housing available in each of your districts. There are certain priorities. It's important that it be located along transit corridors and to have good partnerships with public-private entities. And so we're not looking to put one in each district. We're looking to fund smart deals, but they've got a great track record of having done that. So that money would be proposed to be $150 million of operating money, which would increase by about 50% the commitment to the Barnes Fund over the next 10 years. And the estimation, based upon 28 million, resulting in 1,300 units, that 150 million should be able to create and preserve 5,000 additional units. We hope we can do better than that. We certainly don't know what construction costs will be or what other leverage will be available, but it is our hope that that will create 5,000 additional units. The next component is one that you all are familiar with. The $25 million of affordable housing funding was committed to creating 100 plus units. I think it's going to be more than 100, but I don't have the specific numbers. The RFP for this will be going out very soon, in the next couple of weeks, as I understand it, but there will be an RFP that will go out that will provide housing for individuals experiencing homelessness, but importantly, will also have wraparound services to help those folks improve their economic situation. And that is a part of addressing housing needs across the spectrum. So the final of the three components is the private capital section. And we have had numerous conversations with other parties interested in participating in this. There are some investments that are happening already, but we believe that there are three primary components for this private capital. I hope there are 5 or 6 others, but at this point, we're focused on 3 categories. The first is philanthropic giving. Now, we don't have an expectation that individuals or corporations are going to give $250 million of donations to affordable housing over the next 10 years, although I would love it. And if anyone watching at home, presuming that this is televised, would like to make a $250 million donation, we will find a very good, very cost-effective home for you. But the main point of this is that we want to make sure that there are avenues available, because there have been a number of individuals and a number of corporations who've said, we want to invest in this for our employees, for the city that we love, but we just don't know the mechanism to do that. And so part of this effort is to make sure that there are clear mechanisms. There are already great nonprofits that they can give to, but we want to make sure that this is all aligned with an overall plan for affordable housing. Second component, affordable housing REITs. And there was a question that was received, that we received. One of the questions we got was sort of, what does this mean? You use REITs. REITs are a very specific term. And in fact, there are a number of REITs that are operating today that provide affordable housing. A couple of them that are publicly traded, a couple of them that are just starting up, and one that we've spoken with that has not even sort of come out of the veil of secrecy yet. What I will say about these REITs is that they take on many different flavors. The duration of affordability that they would be funding. How deep is the affordability? What returns are they projecting that they would provide for their investors? You could imagine, sort of take, I don't know if these are opposite ends of the spectrum, but on one end of a spectrum, a REIT that says, look, investor, Councilman Davis, if you're going to invest in this, you shouldn't expect more than a 1 or 2% return. You're not making a donation. You want a little bit of a return on your money, but you're not looking to make a 6, 7, 8, 9% return. You're looking for a low return of your capital, and we're going to be able to pair your equity with some low-cost debt, and we're going to be able to go do housing for folks making 60% of area median income, and that housing will be permanently affordable. That would be one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum may be someone who says, hey, look, you're looking for a 6, 7, 8% return. I can give you a 6, 7, 8, 9% return, and I'm going to do that by going and investing in affordable housing, but I'm doing it in markets that are gentrifying, and 10 years from now, I'm going to exit, and part of the reason you're going to be able to get a high return is I'm going to sell that building, and sure, it'll be affordable for 10 years, but then I'm going to have a nice return on the back end, and so blended over time, there'll be a nice return. And those are both great. I mean, they are wonderful. We want to attract all of that capital to invest in affordable housing, but those obviously are providing very different things for the city of Nashville. And so there are a number of different REITs with whom we've spoken, and we are hopeful that they will increase their investments in Nashville in the future. And we've received quite a bit of attention since the announcement, quite a bit of additional attention from REITs looking to invest in Nashville. So the third category of the private sector is one that happens today, and I think in some ways we could include in this bucket a group that I think you heard from earlier today. For-profit affordable housing developers who are using THDA 4% tax credits, and in some cases may have some period of tax abatement to keep them from being property taxes on the value of those tax credits. But these are for-profit developers. They aren't sort of making egregious returns. We don't think. You can ask them about their returns, but they're looking to make sizable returns for their investors while also providing important assets for workers and residents in Nashville. And another important component of this work is talking with them and figuring out what it is that we can do to unlock additional investment in housing in Nashville. And then, if those things that they're asking us to do include actions by this council, we may come back to you at some point in the future and say, hey, look, we talked to folks and they said that they're investing $5 or $7 or $10 million a year in affordable housing in Nashville, but if we did this thing, whatever this thing might be, a deeper abatement of property taxes or additional infrastructure investments or whatever, then they would do $30 million of investment. And I'm literally just, I don't want to make news. I'm not here to make news, but directionally I want to indicate one of the things that we want to do is go figure out what are the keys that we need to unlock additional investment in affordable housing. And if there are some that we believe are reasonable, we would come back to this body and talk to you about making those kinds of investments. And I think we are open, at least I am open, to having those conversations, and then to the extent that we can find some keys, bringing those to you guys to talk about those. There's nothing today to announce. There's no specific thing where someone has said, hey, if you do this, we'll do that. But I don't want in the future to come back to this body and say, hey, we've got this idea, and then you guys to say, whoa, 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 you said that the $250 million was coming in anyway. That's not necessarily the case, although we certainly do believe a significant component of that will. So that's the private capital piece. In conclusion, we think Nashville is facing a significant challenge. It is a challenge to the quality of life. It's a challenge to transportation because folks are having to move further and further away in order to access affordable housing. It's a challenge to the quality of life. It's a challenge to our sense of equity in this city. And it's a challenge to the fabric of our community. And because we have that significant challenge, we believe that it is appropriate and beneficial for this body to invest in addressing that challenge. And what the mayor has proposed and what we are talking about doing, we believe is historic, both locally and nationally in terms of its scope. And we believe that by working with private sector partners, we'll be able to leverage that investment even further and build, through creating mixed income neighborhoods, mixed use neighborhoods, even stronger communities where we live together and work together and know our neighbors and we don't live in bubbles. And at the end of the day, the quality of life for all Nashvillians will benefit because of this. And I think the photograph that we included here sort of tells that story in a very particular way. There's a woman here who's at a ribbon cutting. I believe her name was Ashley, although I'm not certain about that. But she was at a ribbon cutting for a new home that she was moving into that had been built with partnership with Habitat for Humanity and that had received some Barnes funding. And she was moving into her new home. She is a former resident of MDHA, I believe of Casey Place. And because she moved into that home that was built with Barnes funding by Habitat for Humanity and enabled her to build equity in her home, that opened up another spot for someone else to be served by MDHA. And so it is that continuum of addressing affordability, addressing it across the spectrum with a variety of different tools and serving folks like Ashley and thousands of others that we are so excited to have this proposal. Today is really an overview. We are not asking for specific funding. There will be funding for the Barnes Fund in future operating budgets, and there will be funding proposed for the MDHA process in future capital spending plans, but to help set the table for those requests for this body to consider, we wanted to come and address you today to lay out what the thinking was and what the approach is, and then take any questions that you all have. And with that, I would ask, since I'm the new guy here, but I believe Executive Director Harbison and Hannah Davis are both also available to answer your questions.
Thanks, Mr. Wilshire. Before I open it to questions, the committee submitted ones beforehand. You hit a lot of them, and let me just ask if you could quickly address a couple others, and I'm just going to read them. One question submitted was, is there any contemplated, and you may have touched on these, so they might be easy. At least one of them hasn't been touched on. Is there any contemplated use of GO bond money in any potential project with any private ownership?
Yes, sir, I did not address that, and I intended to. I apologize. So without delving too deeply into GO bond restrictions, any asset built or acquired with GO bond proceeds has to be owned by the government. Even nonprofits, we can't build something and then give it to Dismas House, or build something and then give it to the Frist. It has to be owned by Metro government. In fact, this body, I think, is considering some legislation.
We'll take that for answer.
Related to it. But it is certainly possible that there would be some envisioned project that would include a piece of property that was built with GeoBond funding, and then there would be a property adjacent to that that was built with private dollars. We hope to attract significant private investments to help accelerate this process. So I don't want to say, no, there will never be any private dollars invested anywhere near any one of these projects. There may be, we hope there will be, but the assets funded by the GEO proceeds will have to be owned and retained by government, MDHA specifically.
Okay, two more here. How much 9% tax credit money will MDHA be applying for and using? This is money that could be used by other housing developers. How much of the annual allocation to Davidson County is MDHA using?
I'm going to defer to Executive Director Harbison to answer that question. I could give the superficial answer. He can give the detailed answer.
All right, and just hopefully we get the somewhere between superficial and detailed, only because we've got another committee that the Charter Revision Committee that's waiting for us. And I'm being told that's not happening. All right, go ahead, give whatever length answer you want. Thanks, Mr. Harbison.
Short. We've been blessed to win 4 9% low-income housing tax credits in a row. We just won our 5th 2 weeks ago, so we've got 5 now working. That's governed by Tennessee Housing Development Agency, so I'd refer any details in this to their quality assurance program. But we're going to apply for everything we can every year and compete as hard and fast and well as we can to get any funds we have to leverage using LIHTC. That's how you do affordable housing. I don't think we're necessarily taking away from anyone, because I don't believe the QAP is ever designated by county. It is designated to a degree by region. So I'd refer that to Mr. Perry and THTA.
All right, thank you. And then one more committee question, Mr. Wiltshire. How much money will be required by the RAD program over the next decade? Is there any basis for the number used in the announcement? What is the supporting material in determining this funding number? I guess this is 4 all tied up in one. Was there any affordable housing plan for the already appropriated affordable housing money, the $25 million for each of the last 2 years?
RAD, it's 0. The RAD conversion was complete for MDHA on the 29th of March of this year. It's done. So that took us longer than we anticipated. We started in December of 2013 and finished March 29th, and there's no money at all in this program for RAD. No need for it.
All right, thank you. That uses up the pre-submitted questions. I'm going to go first on the list is to Councilman Sledge.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Matt, for being here. I've got 2 questions that the Chair will permit. First, I think this is extremely helpful. The one-pager especially, terminology notwithstanding, I actually think it helps explain some of those tiers and putting the individual and family of 4 numbers on there, because we get asked that all the time. Both my questions pertain to the private sector potential, and one of the things you were talking about with the REITs, there are a couple of tools that are out there that have an expiration date. One of the ones I'm thinking of is Opportunity Zone funding. So, to your knowledge at this point, has the city been looking at either trying to encourage those affordable housing REITs to go into those opportunity zones, especially those that may not be seeing the same level of activity as others? Or has the city been looking in partnering in a qualifying opportunity zone fund as being a participant? Have any of those discussions taken place?
Yes to the first, no to the second. So the city, I have had conversations. MDHA has had some conversations. Audra Ladd has had conversations. Others have had conversations with folks looking to deploy capital in opportunity zones, and we have encouraged them to very specifically invest in the opportunity zones in Nashville and primarily for affordable housing. But we have not, at least I have not, worked to create a fund, our own fund, and aggregate individuals who or corporations who have qualifying capital gains into a fund and then use that to fund things. I have not taken that step.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks. That's helpful. And then the other question I have was just kind of talking about where the question of the 31,000 unit gap and the fact that there are going to be some that maybe overserved some income levels. And then we have within our annual community needs survey report the fact that the renter vacancy rate has kind of skyrocketed. It's at 7% in 2017. Question for private partners and the potential for private partners. We have a tool, the Housing Incentives Pilot Program, that was used to do a part of that, but really has not been, I think, fully accessed. Is there the potential to be partnering, quite frankly, with those people who have vacancies and pretty substantial vacancies and saying there's an opportunity for you to be, quote unquote, made whole and also for us to accomplish a key objective here?
Yes, and I will say it's interesting. This is probably a broader philosophical question that we need to get into. I think the government is phenomenal. I think this is an example of really creative work on the government's behalf. What I did not value is the importance of marketing and advertising dollars, and I'm embarrassed to admit that. I take full responsibility for the lack of uptake in Housing Incentive Pilot Program. I thought it was an absolute, I still think it is an absolutely geniusly structured program, and I thought it would be patently obvious to any apartment building owner who has any vacancy at all. Wait, so I can fill up all my vacancy and not have to compromise rents? Man, that seems like a thing I should do. What I did not appreciate is just the challenges of marketing something new and innovative to people who have all kinds of sort of fear of the unknown and concerns about ongoing funding, concerns about what happens if the program goes away, concerns about how their banks will treat it, their lawyers will treat it, their investors will treat it. I think there is, and we intend to make a renewed push to roll out the Housing Incentive Pilots Program. It's funny, you mentioned this increasing vacancy rates, and I will note that the rents showed a slight decline in 2017 and then appreciated back up again in 2018. It really just highlights, like, this is a supply and demand game. There was a whole lot of vacancy, a whole lot of supply, particularly at the very high end of the market, that came online in 2017. And as the market digested that, rents compressed a little bit. Now, the demand has reaccelerated for all the reasons that are great. Nashville is such an awesome place, and people want to be here. And magically, rents have then begun to appreciate again. And it is just this, I think that story highlights this is simply a supply and demand game. And what we are looking to do is increase the supply while the mayor and Jamari and others are focusing on raising wages, which is the other way to address affordability of housing. We are focused on the supply side.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Matt.
Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Chair. All right, so I want to, I guess, walk through some basics and just looking at the numbers. Now, what I never understand is real estate deals. I just don't do well. REITs, we can talk about that all day long because you kind of have a prospectus and it lays it all out. So we're talking about $750 million, I guess, in a combination of funds of however you're explaining here. And I just want to make sure I understand this for 1,000 units.
Yeah, so that's a bit misleading. So the short answer is the $350 million going to MDHA creates 1,000 new deeply affordable units that were not part of the Envision process and accelerates the renovation and creation of 5,000 units in total. Part of that are going to be workforce units. There will be some market rate units, again, that can be conventionally financed. But the piece of the funding that MDHA did not have, the piece of the puzzle that that's not true. They had access to it, but it was just slow and incremental, was the ability to fund deeply affordable units that don't produce a return, right? Market rate units produce a return. You can get a conventional loan. You can build them. But if you want to build mixed income neighborhoods, you can't build mixed income neighborhoods unless you have all three components. And so what this funding enables is the deeply affordable units, the affordable units, in order to have mixed income neighborhoods and the resurrect. So it's not 1,000 new. It's 5,000 new for MDHA at a mix of incomes, 5,000 new at the Barnes Fund at a mix of incomes, and then additional new from the private sector dollars that I don't want to sort of put a number out there and say that's going to be, 2,000 units or 3,000 units, because those conversations are at too early of a stage. And so, but we think it is extraordinarily important to talk about our commitment to working with the private sector, because what we really don't want is for the private sector to say, Nashville solved this problem, we're going to go and deploy our capital elsewhere. We think that would be extraordinarily bad. We want to do the opposite, encourage partnership with private sector to leverage the investments that we're talking about making as a city.
Okay, so I'm gonna backtrack just a second to make sure I'm trying to follow the numbers as you're talking about them. $350 million, that is for 1,000 new doors. In other words, new places for people to live. Is that correct? Am I understanding that?
It's 1,000 new, deeply affordable.
Okay.
But overall, we believe that the investment by the city will help speed up. I mean, the Envision process, and Executive Director Harbison can address this as well. I mean, that was a multi-generational investment. It was going to take a lot of time for that process to be completed, because the sources of funding available out there for units that are not producing an economic return. If you're only charging $400, $500, $600 a rent, tough to make the math pay off if it's costing you $175, $250, $300,000, whatever it costs. You're not making enough return. So this unlocks the ability for the mixed income renovation and establishment of additional workforce housing units, folks making between 80 and 120% of area median income, mixed in with some market rate units. Now, look, market rate units are market rate units. And so we don't want to say, we're doing this to build market rate units. The city's capital is going to go to build the deeply affordable and to a certain extent, the workforce housing units. But because those units will be built, there will be the possibility of creating the other market rate units because we're looking to create mixed income neighborhoods.
Okay, so I'm going to stay in this lane because I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding the way you're explaining things. 1,000 units for $350 million, that's $350,000 per unit. But yet we said here that the median house price has moved from $154,000 to $306,000 in Nashville in what I think you said the last 10 years. So $350,000, that's assuming for those 1,000 units, there's not a penny of rent paid on any aspect of that. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, and it depends on how deeply this committee wants to get into the numbers, but the short answer is it's not $350 million for 1,000 units. It's $350 million will enable the creation of 5,000 additional units. Those 5,000 units that's roughly 70,000 a unit.
It is 70,000,
right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Those 5,000 units, a portion of which, a significant number of which will be deeply affordable. There will also be some workforce units, and there will be some market rate units. Those will be financed differently. A market rate unit that's charging, let's say Gulch rents are $1,800 for an apartment, and we think that MDHA is going to provide incredible amenities that will make living at Edge Hill as attractive as it is to live at the Gulch. But let's assume that that's not going to be realistic. They're not going to immediately be able to get Gulch rents. But so if a Gulch apartment's $1,800, an Edge Hill apartment's $1,500 or $1,400, whatever it is, it's sufficient rent generated by the market rate units to finance it, right? You can build that unit and finance it with the rents that it's generating. A workforce unit may or may not be able to generate all the rents to support it. And then the deeply affordable units, which the folks will be paying some rent, but a big chunk of that's going to be coming from HUD, which is essentially paying the operating cost. Those funding sources will determine overall, but what we're saying is if the city didn't make the investment, Those 5,000 units that are being built by MDHA, at a minimum, would take a very, very, very long time to build because the funding sources simply aren't there to be able to expeditiously do this. They have been making progress and will continue to make progress if this body doesn't fund another penny, but it will not serve the city well.
Okay, so let me try and stay in the 350 million real quick. How does that loan get paid back by, who pays that money back?
The taxpayers of Davidson County. It is a general obligation bond.
So it is a GO bond?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it's the gift that we'll just keep on taking because, I mean, that we're talking about a significant amount of money that we're going to ask everybody else around the city to pick up the tab on.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, just to put some numbers around this, and the finance department can check my math on this, but let's take the $150 million of the Barnes Fund. Those are operating dollars. Over 10 years, roughly $15 million a year. And the $350 million, that will come in phases. It's not $350 million in one lump, but even at the end of 10 years, when all $350 million is outstanding, if, roughly speaking, 8% of the total bond issuance cost is your principal and interest cost in a given year. So 8% of $350 million is probably $28 million. Let's just say that math is right. I could probably do some math here, but
You're close.
add that to the 15, it's $43 million is the total cost to deconcentrate poverty, to build additional affordable housing availability for folks in the city, to lower traffic, because folks who don't make as much money, who are working downtown, have an easier way to get there and don't have to drive in from further parts of this city, to improve educational outcomes. I mean, the academic research is unanimous that folks living in concentrated poverty have worse educational outcomes and worse health outcomes. By deconcentrating poverty, we believe that we will have overall improvements to the educational outcomes of the children of this city and improvements in the health outcomes. And so it is absolutely an investment that we are asking this city to make out of the currently roughly $2.3 billion operating budget of the city. At its full financing and funding, roughly $43 million a year to do all of those things.
Chair, I'm gonna stop because I think my head is spinning on trying to figure out how we can make this make mathematical sense. I assume we're going to get back together again at some point and get a little deeper into some of this wrong.
Well, yes, and I appreciate the pause because we've got 8 more people in the queue. But just to wrap up a couple of things that raised by Councilman Glover. So one, as far as coming back, we're definitely coming back because there's no ask for more operating dollars for this in the budget we're going to get in a couple weeks, right?
That is correct.
And so from the operating side, this is a sometime next year issue. And from a capital spending plan, I don't think there's any dollars that are suggesting any, at least until whenever the next capital spending plan is. So there's plenty of time for this to go from PowerPoint to actual dollars for us to talk about it again. And then the second thing that I would wish to parachute into this conversation is Mr. Wiltshire, I don't think anybody is going to dismiss the value of all the things you were just going through, but I think the key point that Councilman Glover was going towards is the fact that up until a couple of weeks ago, this was all going to happen anyway, and now the idea is to move it along more quickly. And so a fair question is the value of the investment for the accelerating of it. And up until a couple of weeks ago, the idea that absent government GO bond spending, the envision projects would take a very, very long time. That wasn't a thing that was part of what we'd been told before a couple of weeks ago. So I can appreciate why Mr. Glover's head might be spinning because there is a little bit of a shifting of the conversation. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but it is a bit of a shift. And I'll give you a chance to react to that. And then it's going to be Councilor Vercher that's next.
I certainly appreciate, I mean, this is a Sorry, appreciate all the comments. I think this is a very, very complex thing, and it's very difficult to distill it down. And I certainly appreciate this will be an ongoing conversation about the spending priorities of this city. I think it's not about capacity. Mayor Briley, actually, Mayor Briley said this is not about capacity. This is about priorities. And so, yes, you're absolutely right.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you, MDHA, for being here. Thank you, Mr. Wilshaw, also. I want to talk about the shift in the narrative, too. And I just want to make sure that, just for the viewing audience, if someone can just take us back down memory lane as to where we are, where we were and where we are as it relates to the Envision. Because I have notes that the process started 2013, roughly a $600 million project I have over like 2,000 some odd units. I don't know if my numbers are correct. I just want to make sure that all of us we're talking about the same data points as it relates to this $750 million investment for 1,000 new units, for 5,000 units in total. That's part of it. The other part of it, too, is, and I think I heard it earlier, we're no longer using RAD. And if we could, I don't know if Mr. Harbison mentioned it, but how many units did we actually rehab with RAD, if we can get that? That's my second question. And then my final question is, we were talking about the affordability as it relates to the vision process, and it was conveyed that it doesn't work without the essentially the diversification of funding sources. So my question as it relates to that, if someone could convey all of the current funding sources to get us to this point, because what I'm hearing is that without diversifying, we can't continue to move forward.
Awesome questions. Mr. Harbison, I think you best positioned to answer some of those.
It's a lot of questions. I'll try to sort through them. How many units have been rehabilitated under rental assistance demonstration? All of them. So all the units received a capital needs assessment by a third party directed by the federal government. They were all inspected, and capital repairs were all made, and an escrow fund of $48 million was established for their long-term viability. So that's repair. Councilor, I'm trying to sort through the rest of them. Can you refresh my memory, please?
Director Harbison, is that all 13,000? Like, how many units was that?
That's 5,531 roughly. Maybe off by one or two, but it's the former public housing portfolio of Nashville, which obviously it's a technical issue, but we're no longer technically in public housing. We're still in federally subsidized housing. That's an important distinction, but we've rehabilitated all of them.
So the 13th, the 13,500
Includes our voucher program.
includes vouchers.
Okay.
So 7,400 vouchers, so that's what that number, 7,400 vouchers, 5,400 apartments, and the voucher numbers vary almost on a daily basis based on who's using them. But that gets you to 13,500.
Okay, and for the Envision, how many units do we have?
So the Envision process I think you're referring to was the original Envision Casey.
Yes.
Which the special planning zoning approved here is just over 2,400. I don't know the exact number. It was between 2,400 and 2,500. Our current inventory there, baseline was 968. And the additional units are 70 new inventory subsidized. And I'll have to get the numbers, but the balance are workforce, split between workforce and marketplace.
Okay.
And that's just Envision Casey. The Envision process since then, we've extended to planning at Sudicum Napier and planning at Edge Hill. And this will allow us to plan the other antiquated sites in Nashville, Andrew Jackson, which is on that chart that Matt showed you, Andrew Jackson, Cheatham, and Cumberland View. All concentrated poverty in buildings built between 1937 and 1961.
And those are mixed income too, correct?
And we'll wait for the community planning process to play out, but one of the goals is to make them all mixed income, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it? Good.
Councilman, you asked about the diversification of the income.
Yeah, of the funding
Of the
sources.
funding. And Mr. Robertson, I don't know if you've got the numbers handy in front of you, but the projects that you guys have done to date have already drawn on a variety of funding sources.
You're right, and we've presented this before, as I doubt anybody remembers it because it's kind of technical, but we have federally insured loans from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. It's one form of leveraging. We've mentioned low-income housing tax credits. We also have new market tax credits, another form of tax credit. We have received grants from THDA, the National Housing Trust Fund, and we have conventional loans as well as a thing called the Community Investment Tax Credit, which is a state program that provides preferential loans. So all of those go into the portfolio. Every site's got a little bit different mix. But those are the basic tools.
Okay, and then my last question, I'm sorry, Chair. How do we decide which percentage goes towards like the deeply affordable bucket? Like how do we decide on a project the number of units that will go towards that?
Well, there's a balance, and each one's a little bit different. It's a balance between a cultural, social goal of remediating concentrated poverty and the practicality of financing each event. So the market rate units carry a certain portion, and they can only be financed with conventional debt. Workforce has to be financed generally by conventional debt, and they are intentionally held at a lower rent, so they don't really carry themselves. And then you put in your equity, your cash to make up the difference. But it's been working out thus far at roughly 40% are deeply affordable, and that would be your replacement units for former public housing. Roughly 30% is coming in as workforce, and roughly 30% is market rate. That's been our track record thus far in rough numbers. And that would be, for example, the ones you see across the river coming out of the ground now. Kirkpatrick Park, Gospel 1, Gospel 2, Gospel 3, the others under construction now.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, we'll go to Councilman Anthony Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Matt. You've certainly hit the ground running and appreciate the presentation. I guess first off, just sort of an overarching question. You know, I like the term under one roof. Does that basically mean, and sort of what the overall strategy is, kind of combining Barnes and MDHA and private, and just sort of, is that what it means, getting everything under one roof?
Yes, very much so. And it really comes down to sort of this slide that there are different tools that are appropriate for different income segments, and you deploy different things. But we think it's important to be well coordinated across it, that we don't want silos of these folks over here driving in this direction and these folks over here driving in this direction. And so Mayor Briley was very adamant about wanting to have everything driving in one direction under one roof. Yes.
Cool. And I was okay with the term deeply affordable. Even it did sound maybe made up, but I think I was used to calling it, low income or low. I didn't know how to describe the 0 to 30 necessarily, so I think that's okay. Couple things. We've been talking about the RAD, and we've had some great success over at Envision. I guess I just want to make sure I understand. We're still borrowing against the land, essentially, of like when we do these Envision processes and we're rebuilding. Is that essentially what we're doing, is borrowing against the land and rebuilding?
Mr. Harbison can address this as well, but I will tell you from a sort of high level, yes, there is significant equity in the land, but the equity that you can borrow against, banks will only loan to you based upon the cash flow you can generate. And so if you're creating, as they have, better housing for folks who can't afford to pay very much, even though that land could be gold, the banks aren't going to give you much money because you're not going to have much revenue to pay back the loan. And so when you're creating housing that is across the spectrum, you don't have as much room here, but you got a lot more room up here, and so that's why there has to be a diversity of funding sources.
Right. So we've guaranteed the 1-for-1. We got to move everybody back in, which is the 0 to 30 that you're talking about, and then our pro formas show, we're also doing workforce and we're doing market rate, and so you got to make it all work. And I understand that's a slow process, and these things are all taking a lot of time. I guess one thing that seemed to be successful, and again, I can't go to every meeting or keep up with everything over there. If we're maybe this is the idea with some of those bonds. If we say, hey, we're going to fund the infrastructure, I feel like we did this some at Casey. We're going to fund sort of some infrastructure, water, roads, this and that, with some geo bonds. Would that help speed it along? Is that some of the speeding it along kind of thing, is maybe we fund those things and that can be done? Hey, we're bringing this project to fund Napier and speed that along with infrastructure. I don't know if that's a part of it or.
Well, yes, and so first, just on one of the key tenets of the HUD program, RAD, is that the transfer of the land titling is owned by the housing agency. When it's owned by the federal government, they have a declaration of trust in the title, and you can't borrow money against it. So one of the key components is unlocking the asset value of the land itself, allowing you to borrow against it. And I think one of the key aspects that's really courageous and wonderful about this program, and I think, honestly, as I go to a lot of these things across the country, very unique, the federal government under the Department of Housing and Urban Development is very focused on repositioning public housing, which across the country is struggling. Our state agency is very focused on assisting us in the Envision process, has been a great supporter. Now we have the city, and uniquely having state, federal, and local agencies aligned, supporting this key issue in our time of a lot of noise and different political views is something that's very heartwarming to me. But yes, those funds could be used for infrastructure, I believe. Again, it's on the limitations that we have to defer to you and council and to the mayor on the purpose of those general obligation bonds. But we have used funds in the past for infrastructure, not a lot, but $4 million were used for infrastructure in the past 5 years.
Okay. And yeah, I think that's great. I mean, that's basically when we cut the ribbon over at some of the early projects of Casey, that's basically what you see happening. You've got THDA there, they've funded some, you've got obviously the federal money, and hey, we've given some bonds for infrastructure. So I think, you know, again, you're up here not just, you're not asking for a check, you're just kind of up here talking about the initial strategies. What I'm saying is I think with that, you know, when you do come back, that transparency and that just saying, hey, this is what we're doing. It's you know, we've done a lot of Casey, now it's Napier time. Here's what we're going to do. We need geo bonds for this. And here's the pieces. THDA's given us this. We're bringing it all together in this triangular partnership. We even got some private funding, you know, raise money. And I think, you know, you shouldn't discount the, just the philanthropic. I mean, people, this town has so much money. People are giving money to everything. We send the mayor out there and just, you know, like, let's get that money. I think we can. I think there's opportunities out there for philanthropic. I think philanthropic, it was the first one on your list, and people say, they're not going to give $100 million, but there are some resources out there. I think we can do it. This is Nashville. We can do so much here, and we have done so much. So, you know, I think it's just, it's good. We've got a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal here, as we say in the planning process, but we can get there, and I would want to be a part of it from infrastructure, whatever we can fund with our bonds. I think it's just important. I will say one thing out of your presentation. 4 years ago, Austin was funding, I don't know if they still are, they were funding 0 to 60 out of bonds. I think you said nobody was, but Austin definitely was. They have to go to the voters to do their bonds, which is different than us. We have even a little more freedom here. But Austin had gone to the voters to get a huge 0 to 60 bond, just from what I remember. And you had to, with city land, you had to guarantee 25% at least were going to be 0 to 60. So, and it was like a in perpetuity deed restriction kind of thing. But anyway, sorry, I'm talking too much here, so I'll get off. But I appreciate everything you're doing, and if we can just continue to learn more and take it one step at a time. Thanks.
Sure. And just to clarify my earlier statement, certainly there are lots of folks who are doing important work across the country. Austin, you mentioned. Denver is doing some really interesting things. What I was specifically referring to was essentially public housing authorities, public housing agencies adding to their stock of federally subsidized affordable housing. Not many places across, I don't want to say no one, but not many places across the country are doing that. There are other nonprofits that are creating housing. Dismas House with Barnes funding, serving 0 to 30. Lots of other places are doing great things. Not many places, if any, are adding to the public housing stock.
Council Lady Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Wilshire, could you share with us a few of the affordable real estate investment trusts? Not necessarily the ones that are looking at Nashville, but just in general, when you look at that space, who are those publicly traded companies that focus on affordable housing?
Sure. I'm blanking on the name of them, but it's like Nextium REIT. I can go pull those up and give them to you subsequently. But there are a number of publicly traded entities that are doing that. Again, the spectrum is fairly broad. A couple of them, more than a couple, are focused on manufactured housing. Others are focused on apartments. So there's
Right. I do
diversity of them.
see, yeah, I do see the manufactured housing ones. I do
Yep.
see the ones that are largely apartment, and I know that those have been around for a while. But are there ones that, so you're saying that the affordability is just one among several of the kind of the asset classes that they have internal to their portfolio, or are you saying they are all just straight up only affordable housing as
No,
a real
so-
estate investment trust?
Yeah, so there are a number, and I'll get you
Yeah,
a
if you
couple
could,
of
if you could
specific-
email the committee with some of those, just so we
Sure.
could look at them and understand them a little bit better.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Next, we have Council Member Berkeley Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Matt, I owe you the name of the one from Atlanta that I talked to at the Governor's Housing Conference, Real Estate Investment Trust. So there's that one as well. I think I'm impressed with what we're doing, partly because it has a lot of components that are permanent affordability, which is important because we have done a lot of great affordable housing in the past that was good for 5 years and then it's gone. And we've newly created this community land trust that has the possibility of creating essentially permanent affordability. Can you speak to any interaction between these components and our community land trust with regard to making sure that some of this new stuff is not just 5 or 10 or 20 year?
Yeah, so Marshall Crawford was one of the speakers at the announcement, and that partnership with the Housing Fund is important to that. There isn't one silver bullet, we think. That different approaches are justified, but having some more duration on the affordability, we think, is very important. That is one of the really most important attributes of the Envision process, is that these are neighborhoods, if you look at the areas around Edge Hill, around Cheatham Place, that are rapidly evolving, making sure that we can maintain affordability in the core of our city is incredibly important. Similarly, the Community Land Trust, as you know, takes property and has it to remain affordable. Now, there are different ways to tweak the model because in some ways, the individuals who are living in that housing, you want them to be able to appreciate some of the appreciation and the equity. And so there are different ways you can tweak the model. But yes, having land in the Community Land Trust, we think, is very important.
Great. And then one more question. When Councilmember Glover was asking the question about how we realize a benefit, from economic benefit from what we're doing, and my understanding is that just the whole housing first model is that when you do that, not only do you increase educational opportunities, but you lower jail costs, you lower health emergency room costs, and a number of other things. Do you know if there's data out there that could quantify that? I mean, that would be kind of a way to put those two beside each other and perhaps realize that we're not just spending money, we're also saving money.
Yeah, I'm a little bit hesitant. You always are.
I always want numbers.
You are incredibly consistent and diligent about asking for numbers. I don't think we want to say there's going to be a 26% reduction in burglaries or, I mean, look, society has many factors, but yes, the data indicate that high functioning mixed income neighborhoods have lower incidences of crime. And so we can work on trying to quantify that in some way for you. But we don't want to promise things that we're in the early stages of. And there will be, look, there's going to be an evolution of this, right? There are going to be ups and downs and lessons learned. We don't want to paint a just rosy picture. But yes, we're doing this in part because we believe that the lives of Nashvillians will be better in a variety of ways.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Chair Mendez. My question was, I wanted to see how does I know that MDHA had moved to like a fee simple type of, I guess for their residents before they were doing affordable housing. Have we moved completely away from that? And if Mr. Harbison could answer that question, I'm not clear about the role of MDHA as it relates to the deeply affordable, if you could.
Okay, Council, let me see if I can get your question. The term fee simple relates to the ownership of the property.
Right, and before that, it seemed like we were responsible for just having deeply affordable housing in the city. And then we went to fee simple. It seems like we began to give out more vouchers and did not have that responsibility. Is that correct or incorrect?
I think you've got some lanes cross-wired there. So
Okay.
on vouchers, vouchers are choice vouchers. They're issued to residents who then must go find a landlord somewhere in America. They can go anywhere in the country. Separate program than what you're talking about.
Okay, good deal. Okay, thanks for clearing that up. So I guess my question is, and I thank you for clearing that up so much, I'm not clear if, are you replacing all of the housing? Okay, so say for instance, let's just use Cheatham Place, and I think we got Andrew Jackson. Are all those units going back in the end, Mr. Harbison, if you could answer that question?
So in the envision process, Cheatham built in the 1936, 1937 timeframe. We intend to completely recapitalize, replace it with mixed income housing under the envision community-based planning process. And with these funds, we hope to accelerate it. We have not started planning that one yet. So each of the planning processes takes about a year with the community to go through. So, but we do intend to replace Cheatham, and all the subsidized, low-income, deeply affordable, get replaced one for one in a mixed-income environment.
Okay, so all those do come back. So then maybe then explain to me, because I hear a lot of persons saying in Nashville, even if it's a different program, that they're having to go out to Clarksville, and that the housing that was once here that we did as a city, I don't know if the formula changed or we got less money from the federal government, but they are now going to Clarksville because they cannot use the vouchers are not worth anything because the rents are so high.
Well, that's a separate topic than what we're discussing here, but we do experience a lot of challenges in placing our vouchers and having the people that receive a voucher finding a landlord that will take it, because the federal government places a cap, a threshold on those vouchers. A one-bedroom's about $900 a month is all the voucher is allowed to be used for. And there are not many $900 a month apartments in Davidson County, so we see a lot of them going to Wilson County, Williamson County, and beyond. And that's very common. It's just the way the market works and the amount of subsidy received for those vouchers.
So I guess my question is it something that we did differently, and how is this program, because to me it's still tied to affordability, what is this program with the vouchers versus the program we're talking about where we provide the deeply affordable housing?
Well, vouchers is a separate program, completely separate. So the apartments we had that were public housing are now still provided to those residents are essentially the exact same terms they received them before. We just receive the funds in a different way that gives us a little bit more money as they're adjusted for inflation. And they're 20-year contracts as opposed to an annual contract. So they're completely different programs. So vouchers have virtually nothing to do with this process right here. It's a completely separate program.
I got you. And so the people that qualify for vouchers would never qualify for the heavily or the deeply affordable homes?
No, they will. I mean, the same income levels qualify for both, and you find many residents are on multiple waiting lists. Are on a waiting list for a voucher and a waiting list for, Kirkpatrick Park, say, or John Henry Hale. Could be on all of those waiting lists simultaneously. Many people do that.
Okay, so then why is it not included in it, since it's a part of it and the same people could qualify in that deeply affordable?
Well, there's no changes to the voucher program. It's staying exactly as the federal government has set it up. All that we're talking about, the envision process, again, they're different programs. So just as you can qualify for multiple programs, they're still different programs. So the voucher program has nothing to do with the mayor's proposal. The mayor's proposal relates only to our bricks and mortar, the existing properties, the land and apartments that we have presently.
Got you.
Not to the vouchers themselves.
I think I totally understand what you're saying. And so this is not something that should be considered under one roof. I got what you're saying about, so you're saying that this only applies to I guess the Cheatham, Casey, Andrew Jackson, and not for people that would receive vouchers even though they could qualify to go into some of these homes. Is that correct?
Correct. If you have, and people sometimes have a choice. They may come off the waiting list and get a voucher simultaneously being offered an apartment elsewhere on another waiting list and have a choice. That's possible.
So if I may, Councilwoman, so MDHA today owns and operates roughly 5,500 apartments themselves. In addition, they, through the federal government, through MDHA, provides assistance to folks who qualify to live in those 5,500, but there's only 5,500 and there's a lot more people. And so in this case, roughly 8,000, 7,500 folks live in other apartments that are owned by other individuals, and but they get a voucher to help them with it.
So the vouchers go to private owners and private landlords who enter into a three-way lease with us. So the tenant signs a lease with the landlord. They pay what they can from their, whatever money they make. They pay 30% of their income. And then we pay the difference of what they can pay to the landlord up to the value of the voucher.
I got you. I guess my question is, and I'm glad you're explaining it, and I do see how they're different. But I guess the overall question that I'm going with is there something that we're doing differently that we've gotten away from just servicing the deeply affordable, that we're giving away more vouchers? That's my question. Is that something that we're not doing anymore? Or is it the same amount? Or are we doing a different approach? Because it seems like we're doing less deeply affordable, like you said, for the brick and mortar, and then we're getting more to vouchers and mixed kind of units.
Yeah.
That's my question.
Yeah, so the voucher program, as I understand it, will remain exactly the same. And if we can get more vouchers or more opportunities from the federal government to provide more housing through the voucher program to other folks, we would certainly do that. But that's not something we really have much control over,
Right.
as I understand it. We don't control HUD policy on that. We'd love for there to be more, and we'd love for more private landlords to offer their apartments and to qualify and opt in, but they don't.
Right. I guess what I'm saying, Matt, hold on a second, because I know I'm confusing you guys too. But what I'm trying to see, are we building as a city less deeply affordable? And I think I kind of went down a rabbit hole a little bit, but let me reel it back in. Are we as a city building less deeply affordable housing? That's what I'm trying to get to. Right. And I probably should not have started off the way that I did. That's my question. Yeah. Are we building less than we used to? Which is, I'm concerned about the vouchers, but I'm not. I get that. Yep. But I guess all I was saying is when we use vouchers, that takes away the people's or the residents that have those vouchers ability to have affordable housing, because we're just giving them vouchers versus building affordable housing through MDHA. And that was my question. That's probably what I should have asked.
Mr. Harbison, other than Barrett Manor and the other initial units of the Envision investment, prior to that, when was the last time that MDHA constructed a new, deeply affordable, a new public housing unit?
Give me one sec. It's a long time.
Yeah, Hopesick replaced and actually decreased, but adding to the stock.
You're talking about new inventory.
Aren't you asking something else?
That's
1971, Parkway Terrace.
So what I'm saying is, Councilwoman, we haven't added to our stock in Nashville of public housing units since 1971. There hasn't been new units created. There have been some build and replace, some replace of some existing, but in terms of adding to the stock, because HUD hasn't been funding it.
So Mr. Wilshire.
The state hadn't been funding it, and the city hadn't been funding it. This is the first time that's happening since 1971. Yes, sir.
I think the question is fundamentally, you guys have, MDHA's fielded this question for years now. It goes to the word on the street that you guys are that MDHA is pushing people out, that there's fewer units for residents when this is done than there are to start with. That's fundamentally where the question is. And you guys have, Mr. Harbison has said for years that it's a one-to-one replacement. Everybody's got a spot. That you aren't, MDHA isn't pushing people out with vouchers. That's fundamentally the question, as I understand it.
If that, yes, the answer to that is correct, that the Envision process was a one-to-one replacement, but now, with this investment by this council, it will be a one-to-one plus 20%, adding 1,000 on top of the 5,500 that we have today. So there will be more public housing units available after this than there is today,
Okay,
by
and then,
1,000.
okay, thank you. And then I guess too, is there money for just building deeply affordable? Why are we not built? Why haven't we not built some in so long? What are we doing?
The federal government has not made funding available. The state government has not made funding available, and the city government, until now, has not made funding available. Now, it wasn't absolute. There actually are about 70 units of new, deeply affordable inventory that MDHA has built over the last several years through a combination of conventional loans, tax credit equity, and other federal support. So they've been doing it. It's just been, they haven't had the resources to be able to do it at the pace that they wanted to.
Okay. I think I'm gonna leave that question alone and I'll ask more about it offline, but I do appreciate you for indulging me. The second piece is that you said that in one part of your presentation, you said not looking to fund in one district when we're talking about affordable housing. If you go back to that.
Yes.
It's on
Where the
9, you said you want to
Barnes
do
family
where
is.
there are opportunities like connectors, and it's on transit lines. But if we look at this map, it doesn't look like that. It doesn't look like we're doing what we're saying we're going to do. So for instance, if we look at Bordeaux, Whites Creek, we know that it's definitely not on a transit line, but we see there's a big old circle of affordable housing. And then the same way, all the way up in top of Madison. So I just wanted to see, are we really measuring that like we said we are? That's all, because we know that the connectors would be, the better infrastructure is in East Nashville and South Nashville, right? Even when we did the transit plan, that's this last referendum. So I'm just trying to see how are we saying that, because that's not true. It's not true.
I can tell you oh, there we go.
Try again.
Okay. So this is part of the previous Barnes portfolio, so from the inception in 2013 until 2018. And the prioritization along transit was added in the last round. So that big project that you see in Bordeaux, when that was first funded in 2015, that was not part of the prioritization around transit. So that's come out in the last couple of years, and you'll see the projects that are funded will reflect that. But of course, the nonprofit affordable housing developers that are funded through Barnes are juggling a lot of different factors in trying to be able to provide units. So, you know, where you do see that there's not as much in East Nashville, that's because land costs are higher there, and, you know, they're looking there, and we have funded projects there, but we also know that they're working in a really constrained environment. So I think that's where Envision and this increase in funding that the mayor's proposed allows us to potentially be able to look more comprehensively at this map and have it reflect our priorities going forward.
Okay, thank you. I would ask that we really look at that. We talked about the importance of creating affordable housing in mixed income areas. So I think if we're not careful of what we're doing, even though we know that the research supports children and families that live in higher incomes do have better education. I mean, that is supported through research. But if we go and we're only doing it in one area, I think it defeats what we're trying to do. So I think we need to do other metrics. There's nothing wrong with affordable, but what we can see is kind of already going in some areas that have already strained on resources and schools that are not performing well. If we were to go right now, most of those, not all those schools, but a lot of them are priority schools. I mean, so we just have to be mindful of that and make sure that we're keeping with what the goals we say are truly the goals. And that area, if we were to take it and do it on a social map, the incomes are not that high either compared to the western part of the city where there's no bubbles and the transit is better. I mean, those are things that we know. We can go into a map and just type in zip codes. So, thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Council Lady Gilmore. Mr. Cooper, you're next.
Thank you. Super quick question to put it in context for people watching at home and for us. Mayor Berry's report, I believe, was 31,000 units that would be needed by 2025. And since this is sort of the plan for the next many years, if you would repeat for everyone, how many units are we talking about here? And is there, what's the deficit, and are there currently plans for addressing the deficit?
Yes, Councilman, as we talked about in the early part of this presentation, I think there is a need to update the data. The 31,000 unit deficit, that same analysis indicates that in the next two income categories, there's actually a 50,000 unit surplus. So it is certainly about constructing some additional units, which we are doing in this segment in particular, but also sort of the distribution of those fundings. So I just want to answer your question directly. This plan, we believe, our goal is to create 10,000 additional units. I want to be a little bit careful. Not all of them will be rental. The 31,000 is a rental number, but the vast majority of them will be rental. This is a first step. It's certainly not the last step, but this step certainly would have the goal of taking a serious bite out of that deficit. And we'll continue to update the numbers.
So if you would, going through the math, so the workforce housing is showing 28,000 and 22,000, so about
50,000.
50,000 additional units.
Yep.
So you're saying there will be a surplus of workforce housing units?
Correct. And I was trying to articulate this earlier. I fear I may not have done a good job. So, I mean, the reality of what is happening out there, as I understand it, you can see that same slide indicates that there's actually a deficit of 23,000 units in the market rate segment relative to the number of people who are renters earning more than 120% of area median income. The reality is that many folks, both in the 0 to 60 segments and, to their credit, some in the market rate segment, are renting units that are in the workforce housing segment, right? If you make 150% of area median income, but you have an average rent apartment, you're maybe paying 15 or 20%. And so while each of these segments, adding to the supply in any one of the segments should lower the overall cost, this 31,000 number is, if you look at the very bottom here, even this analysis doesn't indicate that there are 31,000 not enough units, that there are 31,000 homeless people. It is saying that the distribution of units across the cost of those units doesn't match the number of individuals that we have in each of those income categories. And so we are both looking to add to the supply of the 0 to 30 and 30 to 60, but also help to adjust the rents so that those units are more affordable to more of the people. Now, I bet if you went out and talked to someone making 100% of area median income and said to them, hey, there's 50,000 more units than we need on either side, 20% either side of your income, does that make sense to you? I think most of them would say, no, that doesn't seem like the case at all. It's tough for me to find an apartment I can afford. But this is what the data suggest. And so that's the work that we're doing to try and address the gaps that the city has.
And MHI is?
This is AMI, area median income.
Well, this is owner and renter / supply by MHI projection. Median household income.
Yep.
And so who, this is the 2017 Housing Nashville report.
Yes.
So there was an economist that did this?
That's correct.
Who was that?
David Schwartz was the main individual driving the numbers from EPS, Economic and I'm forgetting the name, EPS is the name of the firm that was the main sort of source of the data.
And then this data is from 2017? or is it-
2015.
This data here is from 2015?
Correct.
Okay. So from 2015, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. So there's nobody else in the queue, but I've got a couple that I saved to the end. Mr. Wiltshire, so if the $35 million per year on average, I guess, over 10 years is being spent by Metro to help build the Envision projects, do you anticipate that Metro's rules about having goals for women and minority-owned business participation in the construction would apply?
That is a great question. It's not one that I've tackled yet, but we will certainly comply with whatever requirements this council has. I believe that there are already existing federal requirements that MDHA complies with, but Mr. Harbison?
Our federal report for 2018 was 48% DBE and 19% minority.
For construction?
No, all across the board, all services, we have to report everything, so.
While you bring that up then, so for construction though, I mean, I know this is going to come up when we get to having a capital spending plan on this, so might as well ask the question now. Are there goals set for contractors?
20% is our goal in all these. We've beaten it every time on each construction project we've had thus far. So that's our internal procurement policy, which I think aligns with Metro, but we'll check. But 20% DBE has always been our goal since I've been here. And I think our closest was like 23% on one job.
Well, thank you for that. And then I'm not sure who gets this question, but it was the anticipated $350 million over 10 years adequate capitalization to get all 6 Envision projects done in 10 years?
I want to be very careful about this. There are a variety of unknowns at this point. I think it's safe to say, no, we do not have any idea that all 10 Envision processes will be completed over the next, all 6 Envision processes will be completed over the next 10 years. But we believe with this investment from the city, we are taking a multi-generational investment and we'll be able to complete it in one generation. Now, I'm not saying that's 15 years or 18 years. We haven't even begun the master plans yet on 3 of the 6 projects. So it would be jumping the gun to say that it's going to be 17 and a half years and we'll be done with it all. But we believe that it will happen in the near future. And I hope everyone in this room's lifetime. How about that?
So then let me ask you about slide 12, where that talks about construction could begin as early as 2020 and 2021 for 2 projects. So does that, I guess I'm wondering, is that before or after the Metro spending GEO money?
So MDHA is making progress on the Envision process today, and they're doing it through a variety of other sources. And we will continue to do that. We will continue to make progress. Metro funding would certainly help speed all of this up in a significant way.
Gotcha. So the question really is just for those 2 projections could begin as early as, is that assuming Metro's GEO bond money or assuming not getting that?
I think it is our hope that they would include Metro's GEO bond funding, yes.
So without it, those dates would be later than 2020 and 2021?
I don't want to specifically say that because we may be able to, I mean, Mr. Harbison and Mr. Thilgen and the team at MDHA have been absolutely masterful at accomplishing all that they have accomplished to date, but I think it would be very tough for us to be able to proceed, as I understand it, on that timetable absent Metro funding.
Thank you. Any other questions from anybody? Looks like yes. Councilmember Vercher.
Thank you, Chair. And I don't want to belabor your previous question. I just want to make sure that I'm clear and following up with the Chair's question. So the Envision Napier, Sudacom, and Envision Edge Hill, without the proposed GO bond, these projects would not occur. So in other words, is the funding not there for it to stay, for construction to begin 2020 for Envision Napier, or in 2021 for Envision Edge Hill? That is solely dependent upon the GO bond from us?
I don't want to say that definitively. Again, MDHA has a variety of financing sources that they've been able to utilize, and we would continue to pursue those.
Okay, so the correct narrative is, for the viewing audience, is that these projects, the targeted construction dates could be as early as 2020, and for Envision Napier, 2021 for Envision Edgefield, not contingent upon this under one roof proposal.
I guess I would say without under one roof, they may or may not happen. With under one roof, they absolutely will be able to happen. Because the funding is uncertain. And Mr. Harbison, please.
Well, I'd like to make a distinction between our planning and actually the start of construction. So in our previous work, we finished the planning, which includes after you've finished all the community meetings and you've come up with a good plan, you've got to go through a process to get your special purpose plan approved through zoning. And then once we know when that date occurs, we start figuring out how we're going to finance it. Honestly, Council Lee, we haven't started our financing plans for FY 2020 yet. We've got 19 pretty much sorted out in what we can do on our own, but not 2020.
Okay, so you may need it, you may not need it.
Correct, correct.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
All right, well, I'm not going to be able to let that go now. So I understood what Mr. Harbison said. Thank you. The slide is pretty definitive. Construction could begin as early as 2020 and as early as 2021. And I guess what I hear Mr. Wilshire saying is that without the Metro GO bond money, we should focus on could, as in maybe, maybe not. With the GO bond money, Mr. Wilshire would feel confident that that would be a reasonable dates for starting construction.
Yes, that is one. I mean, nothing is a certainty, but yes, I'll just be clear. Yes, financing is the gap. There could be, some zoning change or something else that's unforeseen. So I don't want to be definitive, but I will be as close to definitive as I can. Removing the uncertainty around financing, which this proposal does, allows this process to rapidly accelerate. And the only reason I'm hedging, Councilwoman, is because the good work that MDHA is doing today, that entity will continue to do it, but it will take a long time without the city support.
Mr. Harbison?
I think I've always said it's a marathon, so I think I've been quoting that many times, so it's always been a marathon. But one other dimension is is taking care of our residents. So once we have the plan, once we know it's met all the requirements for zoning, we combine our financing with how do we minimize the impact on residents. And that's an evolution and a discussion we have to have with the resident associations and others to make sure that goes smoothly. So all those factors come into play and when we start, but we don't really start working on the details of tenant care and the financing until we have the plan complete.
While you're up there, so I guess you agree with Mr. Wilshire that without the GO bond money, it would be a long time before those two could be financed?
I think I've run 11 marathons in my life, and they were all long. So when I use the term marathon, I've meant that from the start. It was always a marathon to me. It remains a marathon without help. And, combining federal, state, and local assets to focus on this program is the way to do it right. And I just hope we can achieve it.
Council Lady Henderson, did you have something?
Thank you, Councilman Mendez. I think we've been coming at this from a lot of different sides, and I just want to understand, if you did not have Metro GO bond money, aside from the planning aspect of it, could you do these projects?
Not for a long time.
and I don't mean not for a long, I mean, when you say not for a long time, you're anticipating, oh, things may change in the federal landscape, things may change in the state landscape. As things exist today with the programming that is allowed or available rather at the state, local, federal, as things are today, without Metro GeoBond money, can you do Envision Napier and Sudicum, Envision Edge Hill? Just bottom line.
Yes. I mean, MDHA generates.
Can you construct them?
Yes. MDHA generates funds. They generate funds internally, but it's, in the it's roughly, $10 million. And so to do something like this, I mean, they're internally generated funds. I'm not hedging to try and hide anything.
No,
I'm
understood.
hedging because,
I don't.
THDA tax credits, how many could we win? We don't know. When would we win them? What sort of CITC can we get? What's the timing on internally generated funds, and what are the other requirements for those funds? So it's not as clear, but yes, we will do it. But I mean,
Right, I'm just trying to understand from a capacity perspective. So with internally generated funds of roughly 10 million annually, you're saying?
Ballpark.
Okay, so let's just assume that as a baseline ballpark, whatever you want to refer to it as, for Envision KC, just with that internally generated and what is available to you through state and federal programs, how long will it take you to complete Envision KC?
Casey's underway, but Casey itself, 15 or 20, 15 years? I don't
Well,
want
I'd refer you to our website and the original master plan. It has 22 phases. It was to begin at the conclusion of the RAG conversion, which just finished last month. It made a variety of assumptions. That's why we're being very cautious about trying to speculate. The assumptions in that original plan were sound at the time they were made. One of them was a thing called Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grants, which was a reasonable assumption. The federal government changed that program. We were not allowed to compete for it any longer because of our RAG conversion. The RAG conversion took much longer than anyone anticipated. We had title searches for properties that were seized under eminent domain in World War II that we had to track down the heirs of those properties to get releases to get clear title. So those unforeseen challenges leads us to avoid speculation other than to say marathons, we're going to care for residents, because people live in these buildings. And if we start giving concrete metrics, people get really, they already have very fragile lives. And then to start placing uncertainty more in their lives that they're going to move at a certain point in time, we really try to avoid those conversations until we're certain that the financing's in place, the zoning's done, the community's set, the residents are happy, we know it's going to happen, and then we're very concrete and specific about it. So we take it a step at a time. I would say over 5 years, though, we've made great progress. It hasn't generally been on the 9% low-income housing tax credit, the 4% tax credit, and federally insured loans. And there is a capacity that it limits us. But yes, we'll get there. I would hesitate to give you any specified time frame.
Okay, I appreciate that. I guess while I think we all acknowledge the merits of mixed income communities, and we do recognize that this Envision process is groundbreaking and unique and a worthwhile endeavor, I guess I struggle to understand how, with the challenges that have been encountered through the Envision KC project, I guess, it just seems to kind of be doubling down and tripling down on something that, we have not really seen is necessarily going to be successful as a kind of financial model and, deliverable within a certain time frame. And we're talking about, generational horizons. And absolutely, I think it's important to have generational conversations. But I think for us to kind of understand how this is packaged and presented and to what extent, Metro debt will be incurred, I just feel like we've and I appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Harbison.
You're looking
but-
for more specificity.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
That is totally reasonable. And trust me when I say, we are working incredibly diligently around lots of specifics. Let's start with the good news. We agree having mixed income neighborhoods is better for our city. We agree adding to the affordable housing stock is better for our city. We agree this is really hard. We agree, I hope, the first time you do something is usually the hardest. And then it gets a little bit easier because you've learned from some stumbles and you figured out how to expedite the process. And we agree, I think, that if you have the financial capability behind you, it gets easier to do things. And so if we can agree on all of those things, I think we now owe you specificity. And first of all, we're going to do that each and every time we come back to you to say, okay, this year we're asking for $30 million. This year we're asking for $38 million. And here are the projects. Here's how it's funding. But not just those projects. We owe you. What does this look like? How far down the road does this get us? And I hear you loud and clear. We owe that to you. We owe that to this body.
Anything else, Council A?
No, I mean, I guess I would like, though, to understand in the immediate kind of horizon, so that's closer. And I appreciate what Mr. Harbison is saying as to, the end horizon on any particular project and what that will mean for all the various tenants. But just in the near term, 5 years out, I mean, can you look at kind of how many affordable units are going to be deliverable given the circumstances now versus per your plan? Like if we just tighten the horizon and said, okay, doing what you're doing now or what's available to you to do through the existing programs, if we just look like at a 5-year horizon, what would be deliverable in the deeply affordable space given current programs and assets and so forth? I mean, can you?
Sure.
Just from a comparison standpoint.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. So I keep hedging each time just because these things aren't definitive and like absolutes, but currently the Envision process does not contemplate the addition of very many, if any, new deeply affordable units, right? That's the Envision process. From the beginning, it's replace on a 1-for-1 and then add workforce and market rate. So it is not true because Barrett Manor is adding 47 units, I can't remember, 70 deeply affordable units. So they've already done what they didn't even say they could do. They've already done it. But let's just say the existing Envision process says no new units over the next 5 years. And with this money, we do 1,000 units over 10 years. So we're not all of those are going to be built in the next 5 years. But if you want some absolutes, the directional absolutes would be without the city money, no new affordable housing, deeply affordable housing units over the next 5 years. With it, we'll either be under construction or working on or close on, 500, half of the 1,000. I mean,
Understood.
But it's going to take.
So I think, what we as council members often get the question, just kind of bottom line, is why can't MDHA build more affordable housing? And why can't they deliver more deeply affordable units? And if we need them now, is it just at the federal level, there's not appropriate programmatic stuff?
Yes.
Is it because, we've made this Envision choice and gone down this path and that constrains us in any way? I mean, that is just a question that we frequently get is we recognize it's a complex space, but I think what I'm sensing in the community is people understanding at a philosophical level why these Envision programs are important, but also just kind of bottom line, like, for the love, could we please just build more deeply affordable housing units, right? And so I think if you all could speak to that, I think people want to make generational, long-term, aspirational type investments, and we should do that. But also as a city, I think we should do more tangible, immediate things. And so what I'm hearing from the community is this is very much in the aspirational, generational space. and just kind of how do we do maybe a little bit of both, right?
Yeah.
And
Look-
so, so I think there's some skepticism around kind of the scale and the deliverables and the, on this program. And so I think while you can speak to this and speak about kind of the nuance and the complexity and the aspirational and marathons and long range and whatever, what it's always going to come back around to from kind of a budgetary and taxpayer investment standpoint is taxpayers want to help our citizens have affordable housing so that our teachers and law enforcement officers can live in this city and enjoy a good quality of life. And so I appreciate the good work that Barnes is doing, but we're all just kind of feeling that tension of we're not getting there. So I think I recognize you're here to present under one roof today, but there's always going to be kind of tension on that conversation because folks who are in touch with us just want to know, why can't MDHA build more affordable housing more quickly?
Sure, money. I mean, the short answer is money. I mean, there's lots of complex answers, but who's going to pay for it? And the mayor stepped up and said, we're going to pay for it. The city's going to pay for it. And we're going to leverage federal dollars, and we're going to leverage state dollars, and we're going to work together collaboratively with the state, federal, and local officials, and we're going to go build deeply affordable units for the first time since 1971.
So I guess then maybe the citizen's question would be, why can't we just, focus on the deeply affordable space and, with some intention there, similar to, say, you're doing the 100 units of transitional homeless. I mean, that's a targeted space, need you're trying to make. Just is there a little middle ground in the more immediate space that through the same kind of funding that you're asking us for here, it's like we're incurring this debt, we're getting that into our operational budget potentially for all these kind of long-range generational things. But I think what I'm hearing from the community is they want, more of that investment to have a more immediate return, frankly.
As we close in on 2 hours, we'll take that as a food for thought from Mr. Wilshire.
Thank you.
Council Lady Vercher.
Thank you, Chair. I promise my last question for this evening.
Last for this evening.
Yes, you caught that, Matt. So ultimately, this is really like a $500 million investment for the city because we'll be funding the Barnes Fund on top of the $350 million of GO bonds directly to MDHA. So to the city, the cost is $500 million. And I know, this is proposal conceptual. What would be that federal and or state match for our $500 million investment into this space? That's my first question. And then you can just finish it with, if you can, the Envision process in itself, how many units to date do we have from the inception of the Envision process and the duration, the years that it took us to get whatever that number of units is? I'm trying to determine, we're talking about the money being the accelerant, but I'm trying to get that return on years, because the overall Envision was $600 million, I believe, just that time span. And then that's my last question for today. Thank you so much, Matt. You've been a trooper too.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Harbison.
618 apartments financed to run the construction through the Envision process thus far, from a cold start when I got here 5 years ago.
So it took us 5 years for 618 units?
Right, and please understand, that includes a year and a half of planning, that includes zoning, et cetera, but I can go through the sites, but it's a total of 618, and each one's financed in a little bit different way, and they're all mixed income.
And in terms of leverage, Mr. Harbison can provide additional detail, but we believe that it will leverage over $1 billion of federal funding. So the $500,000 from the city will leverage over $1 billion of sort of statutory federal funding. The state piece is a little bit different because there may be other sources, but the 9% tax credits and the 4% tax credits are effectively sort of competed for each year. So Mr. Harbison and his team, our team, have been very successful at that, and we hope to continue to be successful, but I don't want to tell you it's, 80 million or 90 or 500.
And I'll just pile on that. We've been at this about really concretely 3 to 4 weeks. May 1st through 3rd, we've got the senior officials of the Strategic Application Center, which is the HUD repositioning team, coming here to see us because of the mayor's commitment. And we hope to work out and be able to provide you more granularity on the very good questions you're asking, because so much of this is HUD dependent in terms of the leveraging. But they've already agreed to come, and they're going to be here first few days in May. And we'll hope to be able to bring you some more detail on your answers.
Thank you so much, Director Harbison. I'm Church of God in Christ, so we get kind of like a 3 for 1. This is I promise, my last question. If I am living in one of these divisions, just say, for example, if I'm living in Casey and understanding that it's a phased project, and that phased project may take 2 years, it may take 3 years. Am I displaced somewhere else for 3 years and then I come back? Or are we? Is that?
Let me first say, don't apologize for asking questions. This is a massively important thing for our city.
I'm just trying to understand the 1 for 1. Like I'm a family, and we're talking about generationally, this project taking 10, 15 years.
Right.
What family is going to go somewhere, live 10 years, and then move back?
Well, so just in detail, they are not. So we've moved 111 families thus far. Virtually all of those have been relocated on Casey. What we're doing of our property is, as tenants naturally leave Casey, most of them economically are able to move on, we hold the apartment open. We don't fill the vacancy. And then when we plan out where the next block of construction comes, we move people from that block a block away or 2 blocks away, and they stay right there in Casey. They stay right in their family social networks. They never leave Casey. Once they've been moved, they go to the top of the list for the new apartments, and the new apartments open up. So thus far, our total of people that have moved off of Casey is in the low 12, 13 number. They go to somewhere else in the portfolio. We pay for all their moving costs. They get $1,000 dislocation, movement allowance just on cash in the front end. If they leave Casey, they get $200 a month to cover transportation costs, and they're the first ones we bring back. And that's working for us very well. It was constructed by our resident associations in consultation with them on how best to care for the residents. I can assure you nobody else in this country is doing that. But Councilor, you hit the nail on the head. That's what we're all about. We're trying to take care of them.
And think of it this way. I mean, many of the buildings on the existing footprint may have 8 units in them, right? So 1 becomes vacant, and then there's a vacancy over here, and a vacancy over here, and then there's a second vacancy here. So now you got 6 folks living in these. So those 6 folks may move to another building within Casey. It's not that they're not displaced. They're moving to a different building within Casey, but that building's now empty. So then you tear that building down and replace it with a building that has 25 units instead of 8 units. And then you could move the folks who had moved out of that building back into that building, and then you've got some additional vacancies, and then you've got the ball rolling, right? But you do have to take some time on the front end so that you're not just vouchering people out to go live in other places. You're having natural vacancy so that you minimize the impact on the existing residents.
And this is why it takes longer, and it's part of our limiting factor on speed. And just taking care of those residents in the right way takes time, and it's why we're building in phases, where it best suits the residents, and we don't mess up their lives. If they got kids going to Head Start, if they got kids in the right school, we're very sensitive to making sure we take care of them.
You good, Council Lady?
Chair, I want to say you've done a phenomenal job with calling us together, having the agencies here, indulging us in our questions, and I look forward to our next meeting.
Thank you. I'm just going to wrap this up with something I've told Mr. Wilshire, but just for the public, I'll add the place. I'm conflicted. On the one hand, the goals of this are really phenomenal, and that's great. I mentioned earlier that, a month and a half ago, if somebody asked me about this, like all the public statements were that the Envision projects were moving along quickly with alacrity, and that they were going to come together and all happen without this metro spending. And so this concept of a multi-generational process is something that I'm still absorbing. I accept, I guess it is true, but 6 weeks ago, that was not a thing that was acknowledged or spoken about publicly. And I'm glad that we've got time, because part of me getting behind this is if we've shifted this is all on track to happen pretty soon to it was going to be multi-generational, I, at least speaking for me, am going to have to take the time to figure out, okay, is that the only variable that's changed, or are there more? So I really appreciate you guys spending a couple hours with us today, more than a couple hours, and it is a while before we spend time. And again, speaking just for myself, that's the shifting of data points that I'm still busy absorbing. Our last piece of business is that we had a quorum for a while on our one piece of legislation.
Should have paused.
But we, I almost paused, and we went from a quorum to not that quick. But the item is, I'll read it, Resolution RS 2019-1686 authorizes MDHA to negotiate and enter into a pilot agreement and accept payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes with respect to a multifamily housing project located at 3711 Dickerson Pike, known as Buffalo Trail. We're not able to take action on that. It did get a positive vote out of the Budget and Finance, so it'll be able to go forward tomorrow. And unless there's any other business, we'll be adjourned. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.org.